The medical ship floated through the darkness of space like a white bird gliding over a black ocean. Her name was the UNHS Nightingale, and she was beautiful in her own quiet way. She had no guns, she had no missiles, she had no armor thick enough to stop a real attack. What she had were doctors, nurses, and beds for the sick and wounded. Captain Miriam Okonkwo stood on the bridge and watched the stars pass by on the main screen. She was 63 years old, her hair was gray, and her hands were steady from 40 years of service in the medical fleet. She had never fired a weapon at another living being. She had never wanted to. Her job was to save lives, not to take them. The Nightingale was carrying 2,400 refugees from 3 different alien species. These were families caught in the border wars between humanity and the Draven sovereignty. They were not soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, and children who had lost their homes. They came to the humans because humans had a strange reputation in the galaxy. Humans healed their enemies. Humans took in the lost and the broken. Humans built hospitals on worlds they had just conquered. The Draven did not understand this. To them, it was weakness. In the medical bay on Deck 7, a young nurse named David Chen was reading a story to a group of alien children. They were Verithi, a species with soft blue skin and large eyes that always looked sad. The children had lost their parents in a bombing raid. They did not speak human languages, but they understood kindness. They understood the warmth in David's voice as he showed them pictures in the book. On Deck 4, Dr. Amara Hassan was finishing a surgery on a Draven soldier. Yes, a Draven, the enemy. He had been found floating in a destroyed escape pod, his body broken and burned. Any other species would have let him die. The humans brought him aboard and spent 6 hours putting him back together. This was what the Nightingale did. This was who these humans were. And in the cold darkness of space, 3 Draven warships watched and waited. High Admiral Vorthax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blade of Supremacy. He was tall for a Draven, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes like yellow fire. He had won many battles. He had burned many worlds. He hated humans with every fiber of his being, not because they had defeated him. They had not. Not because they had insulted him. They had not done that either. He hated them because they made him feel small. Their mercy was an insult. Their kindness was a mockery. Every time they healed a Draven soldier, every time they fed Draven refugees, they were saying that they were better. They were saying that the Draven way of strength and conquest was wrong. Vorthax would not accept this. He would teach them that mercy was weakness. He would show the galaxy what happened to species that forgot how to be predators. Decloak all ships, he ordered. Target the medical vessel. His second-in-command hesitated. High Admiral, that ship carries the markings of a protected vessel. The Galactic conventions say, I know what they say. Vorthax turned his burning eyes on the officer. I do not care. The humans think their rules will protect them. They think their painted symbols will save them. Today they learn the truth. In the real universe, only power matters. The 3 warships shimmered into existence around the Nightingale like wolves appearing around a lamb. On the bridge of the medical ship, alarms began to scream. Captain Okonkwo saw the Draven vessels on her screen and felt her heart turn to ice. She had seen warships before. She knew what they could do, and she knew that her ship had nothing to fight back with. Send a distress signal, she ordered. Her voice was calm. She would not let her crew see her fear. All frequencies. Tell them who we are. Tell them we are a medical vessel, with refugees aboard. The communications officer worked frantically. Signal sent, Captain. The Draven are not responding. The first plasma bolt hit the Nightingale like a hammer from God. The ship shook violently. Lights flickered and died. Somewhere in the lower decks, people began to scream. Captain Okonkwo grabbed her command chair to stay standing. All hands, this is the captain. Move all patients to the inner compartments. Medical staff. Protect your patients. This is not a drill. Another bolt struck. Then another. The Nightingale was dying, and everyone aboard knew it. In the medical bay, David Chen grabbed the Verithi children and pulled them under a heavy table. He covered their bodies with his own. If the ceiling fell, it would hit him first. The children were crying, their large eyes filled with terror. He held them close and whispered words they could not understand but could somehow feel. Dr. Hassan felt the ship lurch beneath her feet. Her Draven patient was still unconscious on the table. his chest rising and falling with machine-assisted breaths. She did not leave him. She stayed by his side, checking his vitals, adjusting his medications. He was the enemy, yes, but he was her patient. She would not abandon him. The Nightingale's distress beacon screamed into the void for 3 minutes before a plasma lance cut through the communications array and silenced it forever. On the Blade of Supremacy, High Admiral Vorthax watched the medical ship burn. Escape pods were launching now, tiny white seeds ejecting from the dying vessel. He could let them go. He could show some small measure of mercy. He did not. Destroy the escape pods, he commanded. Leave no survivors. His weapons officers obeyed. One by one, the escape pods became brief flowers of fire, and then nothing at all. In 7 minutes, it was over. The UNHS Nightingale broke apart and scattered into 1,000,000 pieces of debris. 2,847 souls were gone. Doctors who had dedicated their lives to healing, nurses who had held the hands of the dying, children who had done nothing wrong except exist in a universe that did not care about innocence. Vorthax smiled. Record this, he said. Send it to every human colony. Let them see what happens when they forget their place. He did not know it, but his message would be received. It would be heard by every human in the galaxy. And among those humans was a man named Admiral Marcus Cole. Cole sat alone in his office on Earth when the recording arrived. He watched the Nightingale die. He listened to Captain Okonkwo's last words, her voice steady even as her ship burned around her. He heard her ordering her crew to protect the patients until the very end. And then he heard Vorthax laughing. Admiral Cole was 60 years old. He had gray in his hair and lines on his face from a lifetime of service. He had fought in 3 wars. He had seen death and suffering that would break most beings. But in all his years, he had never felt what he felt in that moment. He closed his eyes for a long time. When he opened them again, something had changed in their depths. Something old and cold and terrible. He pressed a button on his desk. Get me High Command, he said quietly. And wake up the Reapers. Somewhere in the darkness of space, ships that did not officially exist began to power up their engines. Soldiers who had been waiting for years received messages on secure channels. Weapons that humanity had promised to never use again were pulled from hidden vaults. The humans were coming, and they had remembered how to make war. The Galactic Council building floated in orbit above a neutral world called Sanctuary. It was a massive structure made of white stone and crystal, designed to look peaceful and grand. Representatives from over 200 species came here to talk instead of fight. Wars had been stopped in these halls. Treaties had been signed. For 300 years, the Council had kept a fragile peace across the known galaxy. Today, that peace was about to die. The Great Hall was shaped like a circle, with seats rising up in rings around a central speaking platform. Every seat was full. Word of the Nightingale had spread fast. Every species wanted to see what would happen next. The Draven ambassador stood at the central platform. His name was Krathval, and he was a skilled speaker. He had talked his way out of many difficult situations before. He believed he could do it again. Friends of the Council, he began, spreading his clawed hands in a gesture of openness. A terrible thing has happened. We acknowledge this. The destruction of the human medical vessel was a tragedy. But we must understand the context. There were miscommunications. Rogue elements in our fleet acted without authorization. High Admiral Vorthax exceeded his orders. Whispers filled the hall. Some species nodded along. Others looked doubtful. The Draven sovereignty offers its deepest regrets. Krathval continued. We propose reparations. 10 million galactic credits to the families of the deceased. A formal apology from our government. Perhaps a memorial statue on a world of humanity's choosing. Surely, we can move past this unfortunate incident and maintain the peace that benefits us all. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. He thought he had done well. The human delegation sat in silence throughout his speech. There were 5 of them, dressed in simple black clothing. Their faces showed nothing. They did not react to the offer of money. They did not react to the mention of a statue. At the center of the human group sat Ambassador Chen Wei. She was a small woman with silver hair and dark eyes that seemed to look through everything they saw. She had served humanity for 30 years. She had negotiated treaties, ended conflicts, and built bridges between species. She believed in peace. She also believed in justice. When Krathval finished speaking, Ambassador Chen stood slowly. The hall fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans would say. She walked to the central platform with careful steps. She did not hurry. When she reached the speaking position, she stood still for a long moment, looking out at the assembled representatives. The Draven ambassador speaks of miscommunication, she said finally. Her voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the hall. He speaks of rogue elements. He offers money and statues. She paused. Let me tell you what really happened. A holographic display activated behind her. The hall filled with images of the Nightingale. Beautiful shots of the white ship with its red medical markings. This was the UNHS Nightingale, a medical frigate. She carried no weapons. Her mission was to transport refugees to safety. 2,400 beings from 3 different species. Families, children, innocents. The image changed to show the ship's crew. She was commanded by Captain Miriam Okonkwo. 40 years of service. She had saved Draven lives, healed Draven soldiers. She believed that mercy made us stronger, not weaker. Another image. The 3 Draven warships. 3 warships. 3 fully armed military vessels against 1 medical ship with no defenses. This was not a miscommunication. This was not a mistake. This was murder. Ambassador Chen's voice remained soft, but something cold had entered it. We have recovered the sensor logs. We have the recordings. High Admiral Vorthax ordered his ships to destroy the escape pods. He watched children burn and he laughed. He sent that recording to our colonies as a message. She turned to look directly at the Draven ambassador. We received your message. Krathval shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Galactic Council has rules, Ambassador Chen continued. Laws of war. Protected status for medical vessels. These rules exist because even in conflict, some things should be sacred. The Draven sovereignty has broken these rules. They have shown that they do not believe in them. They have shown that they will kill our healers, our doctors, our patients, whenever it suits them. She straightened her spine. Humanity will not negotiate with those who murder our healers. We will not accept money for the blood of our children. We will not build statues to forget. The Draven ambassador stood up quickly. You forget yourselves, humans. Perhaps your emotions have clouded your judgment. Let me remind you of certain facts. The Draven sovereignty commands 400 star systems. Our fleets outnumber yours, 3-1. Our warriors have been bred for combat for 10,000 years. He spread his arms wide, showing his claws. What do you think you can possibly do to us? You are a young species. Soft, weak. You waste your resources on hospitals and schools. You take in refugees instead of conquering territories. You are prey pretending to be predators. He laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. Be grateful we are offering reparations at all. Take the money, build your statue, and remember your place in the galaxy. The hall was very quiet. Many species looked at the humans with something like pity. The Draven were powerful. Everyone knew this. Fighting them would be foolish. Ambassador Chen did not look afraid. She looked almost sad. You do not know us, she said softly. You have seen our kindness and thought it was all we had. You have watched us heal and help and build, and you have decided we were weak. She shook her head slowly. We are not weak. We chose to be kind. There is a difference. She turned to face the entire council. The Terran Accord formally declares total war against the Draven sovereignty. This declaration is effective immediately. There will be no negotiation. There will be no arbitration. There will be no proportional response. Gasps filled the hall. Several representatives stood up in shock. The Draven ambassador stared at her with disbelief. Total war? He sputtered. That designation has not been used in 300 years, Ambassador Chen finished. Not since our own world wars. Not since we nearly destroyed ourselves. We created that term, Ambassador. We know what it means. She began walking back toward her delegation. Every human colony, every station, every ship has received the same message. All restrictions have been lifted. All reserves have been activated. We are not coming to punish you, Ambassador. We are coming to end you as a military power. Completely, permanently. She stopped and looked back at him one more time. You wanted to teach us a lesson about the real universe. About power and strength and the weakness of mercy. Her dark eyes were cold now. Cold as the space between stars. Class is in session. The human delegation walked out of the hall together. They did not look back. They did not respond to the shouts and questions that followed them. Within hours, every human world received the official declaration. The message was simple and clear. It carried a single code phrase that had not been spoken in 3 centuries. The Nightingale Protocol is in effect. On Earth, factories that had been making farming equipment began retooling for war production. On Mars, academies that had been training engineers began training soldiers. On 100 colony worlds, men and women who had lived peaceful lives reported to recruitment centers, and in the dark places of human space, ships that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. They were old ships with no names, crewed by soldiers who did not exist in any database. They were the weapons humanity had built and then hidden away, hoping they would never be needed again. They were called the Reapers. Admiral Marcus Cole stood on the bridge of his flagship, the TNS Retribution, and looked at the fleet assembling around him. These were not the polished, white ships of the regular Navy. These were black vessels covered in scars from forgotten battles. They were built for one purpose only: to end wars. Permanently. Cole thought of Captain Okonkwo. He thought of her steady voice in those final moments. He thought of the children who had come to humans for safety and found only death. All ships, he said quietly, set course for Draven space. The fleet began to move, sliding through the darkness like a pack of wolves hunting for prey. The Draven had wanted to see what humans could do. They were about to find out. The Draven High Command met in their great war chamber on Draven Prime. It was a room built to intimidate, with walls covered in the skulls of conquered enemies and banners showing victories stretching back 10,000 years. High Admiral Vorthax stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by his generals and admirals. He was not worried. He was excited. "The humans have made a terrible mistake," he announced, his yellow eyes burning with pleasure. In their grief and anger, they have declared total war against the greatest military power in the galaxy. Their emotions have blinded them to reality. He activated a holographic display showing the comparative fleet sizes. The Draven Navy was massive, thousands of warships spread across 400 systems. The human fleet was much smaller. "We outnumber them 3-1, Vorthax continued. "Our ships are larger. Our warriors are stronger. The humans have spent their resources on hospitals and refugee camps, while we have been building weapons of war." The generals nodded in agreement. This was obvious truth. "They will come at us with rage and find only death," Vorthax declared. "In 6 months, Earth will burn. In a year, humanity will be nothing but a memory. This war will add another banner to our walls." The chamber erupted in cheers and battle cries. The Draven were confident. They had studied humans. They knew what they were dealing with, or so they thought. The first sign that something was wrong came from the border colonies. 3 systems at the edge of Draven space went silent. Communications simply stopped. No distress calls, no battle reports, nothing. Vorthax sent scout ships to investigate. What they found made no sense. The colonies were empty, not destroyed. Empty. Every civilian was gone. Every piece of useful equipment was gone. The buildings were still standing. The power was still running. But there was not a single living being left. In the capital city of One World, the scouts found a message written on a wall in perfect Draven script. "We could have killed them. We chose not to." This time, Vorthax received this report with confusion. What kind of war was this? Where were the explosions? Where were the battles? The humans were supposed to attack in blind rage, making mistakes that the Draven could exploit. Instead, they were playing games. "They are trying to frighten us," he decided. "Psychological warfare. They hope to weaken our resolve. It will not work." He ordered the border fleets to strengthen their positions. He ordered patrols doubled. He waited for the real attack. It came 3 days later. The human fleet emerged from slipspace in a formation the Draven had never seen before. They did not approach slowly, trading long-range fire like civilized species did. They came in fast, much faster than Draven's sensors had predicted humans could move. Admiral Marcus Cole watched the tactical display on the Retribution's bridge. The Draven defensive line was strong. 40 warships holding position around a military shipyard. Any normal attacking force would soften them up with missiles, then move in carefully. Cole was not interested in normal. "All ships," he ordered. "Execute blitzkrieg pattern. Close to knife range." The human fleet accelerated. Within minutes, They were in the middle of the Draven formation, so close that the larger Draven ships could not maneuver. This was insane. This was suicide. This was exactly what the humans wanted. At close range, the size advantage of Draven ships became a weakness. They were slow to turn. Their big guns could not track fast-moving targets. The human ships danced around them like wolves around confused giants. And then the boarding pods launched. The Draven had not expected this. In modern space warfare, nobody boarded enemy ships. It was considered primitive, wasteful, dangerous. The humans did not seem to care. Armored soldiers crashed through Draven hulls and poured into their ships. They fought in corridors with weapons that had not been used in generations. Shotguns that turned Draven warriors into mist. Grenades that filled compartments with fire. Blades for when the guns ran dry. The Draven were warriors. They had been bred for combat. They were supposed to be the finest fighters in the galaxy. They had never faced anything like this. Human soldiers moved through their ships with terrible efficiency. They did not hesitate. They did not take cover and trade shots. They pushed forward constantly, accepting losses, never slowing down. Their eyes held no fear, only cold purpose. Within hours, the Draven defensive line was broken. 23 ships were destroyed. 11 were captured. The military shipyard was in human hands. High Admiral Vorthax received the report in silence. For the first time, a small seed of doubt entered his mind. How? One of his generals asked. How did they do this? Vorthax had no answer, but he was about to learn. Over the following weeks, reports came in from across the border. Human fleets were striking everywhere at once. They appeared from slipspace, attacked with overwhelming force, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. They were not fighting a war. They were conducting a systematic destruction of Draven military capability. Shipyards burned. Training facilities were demolished. Supply depots were captured or destroyed. The Draven war machine required fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and new ships. The humans were cutting off all of it, and they were using weapons and tactics that nobody had seen before. The galaxy called the humans young. The humans had traveled among the stars for only a few centuries. But on Earth, humans had been killing each other for thousands of years. They had invented countless ways to wage war. They had written books about it. They had built philosophies around it. They had refined the art of destruction to a terrible perfection. Now they were sharing that knowledge with the Draven. Admiral Cole deployed tactics from human history. Blitzkrieg, the lightning war of rapid armored assault. Shock and awe, overwhelming force designed to break enemy morale. Scorched earth, denying resources to the enemy. Combined arms, coordinating infantry, armor, and air power into a single devastating whole. The Draven had no words for these concepts. They had no defenses against them. And then there were the Reapers. They moved through Draven space like ghosts. Their ships were black and carried no identification. Their soldiers left no survivors to report what they had seen. Military bases that were considered impregnable went dark without a single distress call. Rumors spread among the Draven forces. The Reapers were demons. The Reapers were machines. The Reapers were the human god of death made flesh. The truth was simpler and more frightening. They were human soldiers who had been trained from birth for this kind of war. They existed in no database. They had no families, no homes, no identities outside their unit. They were weapons in human form, and they had been waiting in the darkness for centuries, hoping they would never be needed. The Nightingale had changed that. Wherever the Reapers went, they left the same message broadcast on every frequency. The same words, repeated again and again. This is for the Nightingale. Vorthax listened to these broadcasts in his war chamber. The skulls on the walls no longer seemed so impressive. The victory banners seemed faded and old. He had thought he was teaching humans a lesson about power. Instead, he was learning a lesson about humans. They had shown the galaxy their mercy, their kindness, their hospitals and schools and refugee camps. They had chosen to be good, but they had not forgotten how to be terrible. They had simply put that knowledge aside, hoping they would never need it again. The attack on the Nightingale had reminded them. By the end of the second month, 12 Draven core systems had fallen. Not just occupied, dismantled. The humans were not trying to hold territory. They were erasing the Draven ability to make war. Every factory that could build weapons was destroyed. Every academy that trained soldiers was closed. Every shipyard that could repair warships was burned. The Draven Empire was bleeding, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down. In the Great War Chamber, Vorthax stared at the tactical display. His border fleets were shattered. His supply lines were cut. His military was dying one piece at a time. "We must sue for peace," one of his admirals suggested quietly. "Negotiate a surrender before." "Surrender?" Vorthax spun to face him, eyes blazing. "We are Draven. We do not surrender to prey." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The humans were not prey. They never had been. They had simply chosen not to hunt. Until now. 3 months into the war, the Draven sovereignty was dying. High Admiral Vorthax had retreated to Draven Prime, the homeworld, the heart of his empire. Behind him lay the ruins of what had once been the greatest military power in the galaxy. Before him stood the last defense fleet, ships pulled from every corner of remaining Draven space. 200 warships formed a wall of metal and guns around the planet. It was an impressive sight. It was also all they had left. Vorthax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blade of Supremacy, and stared at the tactical display. 3 months ago, he had commanded thousands of ships. 3 months ago, he had laughed as a medical vessel burned. 3 months ago, he had thought he understood what humans were. He understood nothing. The reports from the outer systems told a story of systematic destruction. Human fleets had swept through Draven space like fire through dry grass. They did not conquer. They did not occupy. They simply erased everything military in their path. Shipyards that had taken centuries to build were now floating debris. Training academies that had produced warriors for generations were empty ruins, and the humans kept coming. On Draven Prime, the civilian population was terrified. They had been told their whole lives that the Draven military was invincible. Now they watched their defenders retreat system after system. Now they heard rumors about the black ships that left no survivors. Now they prayed to gods they had almost forgotten. Vorthax had tried everything. Ambushes, traps, decoys. The humans anticipated every move. They seemed to know where his forces would be before he did. Their intelligence network was everywhere. Their soldiers appeared from shadows and vanished before retaliation could come. He was beginning to understand that this was not just a war. This was a harvest. And his people were the crop. On the 3rd day of the siege, the human fleet arrived. Vorthax had expected a large force. He had not expected this. Ships emerged from slipspace in numbers that defied belief. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. They came from every direction, surrounding Draven Prime in a sphere of metal and fire. The tactical display turned red with enemy contacts until the computer could no longer show them all. Every human colony had sent ships. Every station. Every hidden reserve. This was not just the human military. This was humanity itself, gathered together for a single purpose. The sky of Draven Prime darkened as the fleet blocked out the stars. On the surface, Draven citizens looked up and knew that their world hung by a thread. Children cried. Adults stood in stunned silence. Priests began saying last rites in temples that had not seen worshippers in centuries. Admiral Marcus Cole sat on the bridge of the TNS Retribution and studied the enemy formation. 200 ships against his thousands. It would not be a battle. It would be an execution. He did not feel satisfaction. He felt tired. Cole was 60 years old. He had spent most of his life trying to keep peace, trying to prevent exactly this kind of war. He had believed that humanity could show the galaxy a better way. He had believed that mercy was strength. He still believed it. But mercy had limits, and those limits had been crossed on a medical ship called Nightingale. He thought about Captain Okonkwo. He thought about her 40 years of service, healing everyone regardless of species. He thought about her steady voice in those final moments, caring for her patients even as death came for her. She had been better than him, better than most people would ever be. And Vorthax had laughed as she died. Cole opened a communication channel. His signal cut through all frequencies, reaching every ship in both fleets, every communications array on Draven Prime, every receiver in the system. Vorthax, I know you are listening. On the Blade of Supremacy, every screen flickered and showed the face of a tired human, with gray in his hair and ice in his eyes. You killed 2,847 people on the Nightingale. Doctors who had dedicated their lives to saving others, patients who had come to us for healing, children who had done nothing wrong except exist. Cole's voice was flat, empty of anger. Somehow that made it worse. You destroyed escape pods. You left no survivors. And when it was done, you laughed and sent us the recording. He paused, letting the words settle. Your empire is broken. Your fleets are ash. Your shipyards are debris. Your military academies are ruins. You have nothing left except the ships around your homeworld and the prayers of your people. On the bridge of the Blade of Supremacy, Vorthax stood frozen. His officers watched their High Admiral and saw something they had never seen before. Fear. I am giving you one chance, Cole continued. One opportunity to end this. Surrender unconditionally. Every member of your high command will stand trial for the attack on the Nightingale. Every officer who participated will face justice. Your military will be dissolved permanently. You will never threaten another healer as long as your species exists. The channel remained open, waiting for a response. Vorthax looked around his bridge. He saw his officers watching him. He saw the fear they were trying to hide. He thought about what surrender would mean. He would be stripped of his rank. He would stand before human judges. He would be made an example. His pride rebelled against the very idea. But there was something else. Something deeper. He thought about the human fleet surrounding his world. He thought about what they could do if he refused. He thought about the civilians on the surface. The children who had done nothing wrong except be born Draven. For one moment, one brief moment, Vorthax considered accepting the surrender. He considered saving his people from what was coming. Then he thought about how it would look. A Draven High Admiral, bowing to humans, prey defeating predators. His name would be cursed for generations. His memory would be spit upon. Everything he had built would mean nothing. His pride won. Humans, he broadcast, forcing strength into his voice. You have fought well, but this is Draven Prime, the heart of our civilization. 10,000 years of warriors have been born on this world. You may have more ships, but we have something you lack. We have the will to die for our honor. He straightened his spine and bared his teeth in what was meant to be a defiant smile. We are Draven. We do not surrender to prey. Come and take our world if you can. We will make you pay for every meter in blood. The channel went silent. On the retribution, Admiral Cole listened to the response. He had expected it. He had hoped otherwise, but he had expected it. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face showed nothing at all. You have chosen then, he said softly. So be it. He turned to his tactical officer. All ships, move to attack formation. Weapons free. He paused, then added, no bombardment of civilian areas. No attacks on non-military targets. We are not them. The human fleet began to move. Thousands of ships, advancing in perfect coordination. They were silent. They did not shout battle cries or make threats. They simply came forward, inevitable as the tide. On Draven Prime, millions watched the sky and prayed. On the Blade of Supremacy, Vorthax watched his tactical display and tried to convince himself that he could still win. That his warriors would fight hard enough, die bravely enough, to turn the tide. But deep inside, in a place he would never admit existed, he knew the truth. He had killed their healers. He had murdered their children. He had laughed, and now the humans were here to collect the debt. The first shots were fired at 1400 hours, local time. The Battle of Draven Prime had begun. It would last 19 hours. It would change the galaxy forever. The Battle of Draven Prime lasted 19 hours. When it ended, the Draven defense fleet existed only as scattered debris floating through space. 200 warships, the last strength of a once mighty empire, had been reduced to twisted metal and fading heat signatures. It had not been a battle. It had been an education. The human fleet moved through the wreckage slowly, searching for survivors. They found some. Draven warriors floating in damaged escape pods, wounded soldiers drifting in broken sections of hull. Against all expectation, against everything the Draven believed about humans seeking revenge, the humans rescued them. Medical ships that had been waiting behind the battle line moved forward and began treating the wounded. Draven soldiers woke up in human medical bays, surrounded by doctors who spoke softly and treated their injuries with careful hands. Many of them did not understand. They had been taught that humans would torture them, enslave them, kill them slowly for what their leaders had done. Instead, they received blankets, food, and medicine. This was the human way. Even now. Even after everything. But mercy did not mean the guilty would escape justice. High Admiral Vorthax had tried to escape during the battle. When it became clear that the Blade of Supremacy could not win, he had ordered his flagship to break through the human lines and flee to deep space. He would rebuild somewhere. He would gather the scattered remains of Draven military power. He would return for revenge. He did not get far. The Reapers had been waiting for him. 3 black ships appeared from nowhere, surrounding the Blade of Supremacy before it could engage its jump drive. Vorthax ordered all weapons to fire. His ship was larger, better armed. He should have been able to fight his way free. He could not. The Reaper ships moved like shadows, dodging fire that should have been impossible to avoid. They did not try to destroy his ship. They disabled it piece by piece. First the engines, then the weapons, then the shields. Within an hour, the Blade of Supremacy was drifting dead in space, power failing, unable to fight or run, a single boarding pod attached to the hull. Vorthax waited on his bridge with his personal guard, 20 of the finest Draven warriors ever trained. They would sell their lives dearly. They would take as many humans with them as possible. The door exploded inward. What came through was not what Vorthax expected. He had imagined angry soldiers, screaming for blood, wild with the desire for revenge. Instead, he saw 6 humans in black armor moving with mechanical precision. They did not shout. They did not threaten. They simply moved forward, and everything in their path died. His guards fell in seconds, not minutes. Seconds. 20 elite warriors, trained from birth for combat, killed by 6 humans who treated the whole thing like a routine exercise. Vorthax drew his ceremonial blade. If he was going to die, he would die fighting. A human hand caught his wrist before he could strike. The grip was impossibly strong. He looked into the visor of the soldier holding him and saw nothing but his own reflection. "High Admiral Vorthax," a voice said from behind the mask. "You are under arrest for crimes against protected persons, murder of civilians, and violations of galactic law. You will be transported to stand trial." Vorthax struggled, but he might as well have been fighting a machine. The humans bound his hands, checked him for hidden weapons, and escorted him off his own ship. As they led him away, he passed a viewport. Through it, he could see the wreckage of his fleet, the ruins of his dreams of glory. He had wanted to teach humans a lesson about power. Instead, he had learned a lesson about consequences. The galaxy watched the trial. Every species, every world, every station tuned in to see High Admiral Vorthax face human justice. Many expected a show trial, a quick execution, revenge disguised as law. They were wrong. The trial lasted 3 months. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. Vorthax was given lawyers to defend him, allowed to speak in his own defense, treated according to every legal protection that existed. It was fair. It was thorough. It was everything the attack on the Nightingale had not been. In the end, the verdict was guilty on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment without possibility of release. Vorthax would spend his remaining years in a human prison, watched by guards who had lost friends and family on the Nightingale. They would not hurt him. They would not torture him. They would simply make sure he never tasted freedom again. Some said death would have been kinder. Perhaps that was the point. The other Draven officers who had participated in the attack faced similar trials, similar sentences. Justice, not revenge. Punishment, not slaughter. The Draven civilians were never harmed. Human forces occupied key military positions on Draven Prime but did not enter civilian areas. Food shipments continued. Power stayed on. Schools remained open. Children played in streets watched over by human soldiers who smiled at them and offered candy. This confused the Draven more than anything else. 3 months after the battle, Admiral Marcus Cole made a final broadcast to the galaxy. His face appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds, watched by trillions of beings from countless species. "The war is over," he said simply. "The Draven sovereignty's military has been dissolved. Their leaders have faced justice. The threat they posed to protected vessels and innocent lives has been ended." He paused, and his tired eyes seemed to look through the screen directly at each viewer. "But I want to make something clear to every species watching this. Humanity did not fight this war for conquest. We did not fight it for resources or territory or glory. We fought it because the Draven attacked a ship of mercy and murdered everyone aboard." His voice hardened slightly. The UNHS Nightingale carried doctors who had spent their lives healing others. She carried refugees who had come to us for safety. She carried children who had done nothing wrong. The Draven killed them all and laughed about it. Cole leaned forward. Let every species in this galaxy understand something. Humanity will always offer peace first. We will heal your sick. We will shelter your refugees. We will build hospitals in your ruins and schools on your worlds. We believe that mercy makes us stronger, not weaker. We believe that kindness is not weakness. His eyes grew cold. But if you mistake our compassion for vulnerability, if you think our mercy means we cannot fight, if you ever touch those under our protection, he paused, we will remind you that we were not always kind. We chose to be, and we can choose differently. The broadcast showed a new image. It was the emblem of the UNHS Nightingale, the white ship with red medical markings. This symbol was now painted on the hull of every human warship. A reminder, a warning, a promise. We built our civilization on the ashes of terrible wars. We nearly destroyed ourselves learning the lessons we now carry. We chose to become better. We chose to be healers instead of warriors, builders instead of conquerors, friends instead of enemies. Cole's voice softened. But we have not forgotten what we were. We have not lost the ability to be terrible. We have simply chosen not to use it. He straightened. The Nightingale Protocol remains in effect. Any attack on human medical vessels, any attack on those under our protection, will be met with the full force of human capability. There will be no warnings. There will be no negotiations. There will only be consequences. The broadcast ended. 1 year later, a new station was completed in the Varath Expanse, in the same region of space where the Nightingale had died. It was the largest medical facility in the galaxy, equipped with the most advanced technology humanity possessed. Doctors from 40 different species worked there, healing anyone who came to them, regardless of origin. They named it Nightingale Station. Above the main entrance, carved into stone that would last forever, were the names of every soul lost on the original Nightingale. 2,847 names, doctors and nurses, patients and refugees, adults and children, all remembered, none forgotten. Below the names was a single inscription, written in 100 languages, so that any being who came there could understand. They came to us for healing. We will never forget. The station was painted white with red markings. It carried no weapons. Its only purpose was to save lives, but in the shadows of nearby space, hidden from casual sensors, a human battle group kept eternal watch. Black ships with no names, crewed by soldiers who would never be known. They did not threaten. They did not patrol aggressively. They simply waited, just in case the galaxy needed another reminder. Years passed. The Draven rebuilt themselves, not as a military empire but as something new. They had learned that strength was not the only thing that mattered. Some of them even became doctors, working alongside humans in hospitals across the galaxy. The species that had once tried to teach humans about power now learned from humans about purpose. And throughout the galaxy, beings told stories about humanity. Strange stories, contradictory stories, stories about a species that built hospitals for their enemies and destroyed fleets that threatened the innocent, stories about soldiers who could kill with terrifying efficiency and then offer food to the survivors, stories about a race that chose kindness but never forgot how to be cruel. The stories always ended the same way. Do not attack the healers. Do not threaten the protected. Do not mistake human mercy for human weakness, because if you do, the humans will come for you, and they will remember everything.